What's going on, everyone? I'm just a typical, average American here today to react and learn about why Norway owns the entire northern coast of Scandinavia. So I have always wondered why Norway is shaped the way it is. You see this map? You see how Norway wraps around Sweden and Finland? Why is that? Norway gets the entire northern coast, and Sweden and Finland are just cut off. So, how did that happen? Why is this the way it is? Today, I want to take a look at this video and learn about the history of Norway and why it is shaped like this. So, let's take a look.
This is the Scandinavian Peninsula, located right next to the Arctic Ocean. The peninsula is made up of the countries of Sweden, Finland, and Norway, covering a total land area of around 750,000 square kilometers.
Wow.
These countries have a combined population of about 21 million people, which is comparable to the population of the U.S. state Florida.
It is amazing how small the Scandinavian countries are. I actually think that's really cool. How Norway and Sweden and Finland, you guys have just like a couple million people. I think that's awesome, actually. It'd be really cool to be in a country where, there's not a huge population. It's probably much more of like a community kind of feeling, I would think.
Known for their beautiful scenery in the form of mountains, lakes, and forests, and their icy cold temperatures, these countries rank amongst the top of the United Nations Human Development Index. Yeah. Glancing at the map, it looks like all three countries would have a coastline touching the Arctic Ocean to the north.
Yeah.
But if one takes a closer look at the map, one would notice that Sweden and Finland do not actually have any land that meets the Arctic Ocean.
Exactly. I've always noticed this. And I just think something must have happened. I'm sure Sweden and Finland would like to be more north, but that territory all belongs to Norway. And that gives Norway a huge coastline, which is pretty cool for Norway.
This is because the country of Norway cleverly loops around them and stops any connection they would have to the coast. The answer to that is rooted in history. Looking way past the modern era, in the early 1200s, before countries had taken form in the manner we know of them today, there were multiple kingdoms ruling over these areas. The Kingdom of Sweden at the time extended to the mouth of the Bay of Bohemia, but did not extend further north. The Kingdom of Norway...
Wow, okay. See, this is important. This is the stuff I'm looking for, because, to be honest, here in the United States, we don't learn anything about Scandinavian history, or what happened in the 1200s, or... I didn't know the Kingdom of Sweden was this big. I didn't know any of this, so this is good. I'm kind of learning about this for the first time now.
The Kingdom of Norway, on the other hand, was home to the Norsemen, a seafaring people who sailed the oceans looking for new lands to conquer and raid. Their country was described as very long and very narrow. The kingdom, even then in the ancient times, stretched across the entire northern coastline of northern Europe.
Wow. So this is back, when it was a long time ago when different cultures and countries were still kind of being decided what the borders and boundaries would ultimately be.
Thus, historically, Norwegian heritage and history is rooted in the country's seafaring past and its usage of its long coastline. Moving forward in time a few centuries, the landscape of the region has changed again. While the coast of what is now known as Finnmark country of northern Norway contained pockets of Norwegian settlements, the region was overall very sparsely populated, and the people who lived here were mostly Samis, who were not considered citizens of any country and paid taxes to Norway, Sweden, and Russia.
I've heard that word before, Samis. Like the indigenous native inhabitants of the area? What's tricky about this is an area that's very, very north, very cold, very difficult to inhabit. So I'm sure all of the Scandinavian countries weren't quite like exploring that area or very enthusiastic about that area. And it sounds like there were people living there already.
For a long time, there simply wasn't any actual border to speak of. Norway stopped on the coast of what is now Tromsø, and Sweden, which at the time included Finland as well, ended by the coast of the Gulf of Bohemia. The whole region in between simply was not considered part of either nation.
Whoa, okay. Interesting. That's already kind of telling me how this happened. There was this entire area that was like undeclared, or maybe like unofficially just owned by the Sami people who lived there, but not really called anything. Like this nation didn't have a name, it was just nothing.
Until the modern era. Then came Christian IV, the ruler of Denmark-Norway, which was a combined kingdom in the late 1500s.
Okay.
It was he who felt the coast of Finnmark was an integral piece of land to take.
Oh, okay. It did have a name. It's Finnmark. Has it always just been called Finnmark? Okay, but that's really the area we're talking about. That's the area where you would think Sweden or Finland would own that. That's the area that, like, it throughout history, it sounds like was kind of up for grabs, sort of.
Take over, and he organized a large fleet to take over the area and led it himself.
Oh.
He sailed past the north, chased the corsairs and pirates away, and claimed these lands for Norway.
Oh, there you go. There it is. 1500. What was this king's name?
He who felt Mark Norway. Until the modern era. Then came Christian IV.
King Christian IV of Denmark, Norway, decided that he wanted to conquer this area. And in 1500 AD, he got a bunch of ships and just did it.
Norway. Today's historians believe that if he had not taken this action, it is likely that Sweden would have been the nation that pushed northwards, which would have greatly changed the way the borders appear today.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Like, just logically thinking, you would think that territory would be like, because Norway goes up, and then like Sweden and Finland just kind of end. But it just comes down to like hundreds of years ago where somebody, one of the rulers, decided they wanted it. It's as simple as that.
However, Christian's decisive actions meant that Norway claimed that land as their own. And a century later, in 1751, the borders between Norway and Sweden were agreed on for good. This pretty much explains why Sweden doesn't open up into the Arctic Ocean. But what about Finland? Well, during most of history, the area that is considered Finland today actually came under Sweden.
What's interesting is Norway, Sweden, like, separated. And I guess Sweden kind of agreed to let Norway keep that area. Like, they didn't really go into that, the agreement when Norway and Sweden broke up, but I don't know. Must have been, like, more simple than I thought.
The eastern portion of the medieval and early modern Swedish kingdom is what would be known as Finland today. However, at no point...
Wait, what now? Hold on. At some point in history, Sweden just owned everything around here, I guess.
Finland. Well, during most of history, the area that is considered Finland today actually came under Sweden.
Sweden literally owned Norway at one point and Finland at one point? Is that correct?
The eastern portion of the medieval and early modern Swedish kingdom is what would be known as Finland today.
Oh.
However, at no point during their joint history did Sweden and Finland have any actual dominion over any coastal area of the Arctic Sea. The area closest to Swedish-Finnish territory was disputed by Norway and Russia, and no formal border between the two powers was agreed on until 1825.
Wow.
In fact, in 1808, Russia captured and took over the region of Finland from Sweden.
What?
The Emperor of Russia made Finland a Grand Duchy.
Wow, there's a lot of history I don't know about. There is a lot of history I don't know about. I didn't know about that.
remained a part of Russia until the time of the Bolshevik Revolution in 1917, at which point it declared its independence as a country of its own.
Wow.
When it became independent, Finland actually had a tiny portion of the Arctic coastline within the country in the form of the Petsamo province
Really?
and the port of Linnakumari.
Oh.
During World War
Wow, that's funny. This is really getting detailed now. But at one point, Finland did have a tiny, tiny little coast.
II, Finland actually fought against the Soviet Union to defend this region, as it was the only export route for Finland and Sweden not controlled by Nazi Germany or the Soviet Union. However, after the war, Finland gave up the area of the former Petsamo province to the Soviet Union,
I see.
and thereby lost its connection to the Arctic Ocean.
I see. So now, in the modern day, neither Sweden or Finland touch the Northern Ocean, and I mean, Norway is known for having a huge, huge coast. And now I understand how that happened. It's kind of part of Norway's identity at this point.
After this, Sweden and Finland never regained their connection to the Arctic coastline, and until today remain locked off from it by the countries of Norway and Russia.
Right.
However, the northern region of Norway that was once undisputed land inhabited by the Samis is now a multicultural region. Borders may be fixed, but this area continues to be a melting pot of different people heavily influenced by its past.
Yeah, I don't know much about Finnmark. It sounds like this northern area of Norway was like very much under like, it wasn't quite sure who owned it or who wanted it or who was going to get it or who rightfully deserved to be there. And now in the modern day, a whole bunch of different people live there.
Various Sami peoples, as well as Finns and Finnish, Russians, and Norwegians, all live side by side with immigrants and visitors from all over the world. And there you have it, folks, the reason for Finland and Sweden being completely cut off from the Arctic Ocean.
There you go. Okay, there I go. That's exactly what I wanted to learn about. Exactly. I have always wondered, because if you just look at the map, it literally looks like Norway is like wrapping around Sweden and Finland. And I knew there had to be a reason. And it really, it's not exactly clear, the details, but basically that area was, there were people living there, the Sami or Sami people living there. But they didn't really have a declared nation. And then in the 1500s, the king of Norway, Sweden, basically just decided to take it over, and that was it. And that happened, and ever since it's been part of Norway. So that makes sense. It's a pretty straightforward history, actually. So if you enjoyed this, feel free to give this video a like, or leave a comment with your thoughts on this interesting part of Norwegian history. And if you're interested in more videos like this, me reacting and learning about Norwegian culture and seeing Norwegian things I've never seen before, feel free to subscribe for more. And until then, thanks for watching, and see you next time.